I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this. I mean, I knew my wife Lisa had her moments. She was always a little bitchy when she didn't get her way, and she had this knack for lying about small stuff, but I never imagined she'd cheat on me. Not with someone I knew so well, someone I even proposed to her at that very restaurant. That place, Bella Vista, was supposed to be our special spot, our little world. We went there on our first date, and I even popped the question there a year ago. It was perfect. Or so I thought. Things started feeling off about 2 months ago. Lisa, ever the drama queen, started acting more distant, snapping at me over the tiniest things, like I'd said the wrong name or looked at her the wrong way. She'd shrug it off with some bitchy comment about how I was too busy or not paying enough attention. I let it slide because I was trying to be patient. Maybe she was stressed at work, maybe she just needed space, right? But then I caught her texting late at night, hiding her phone when I walked in the room. She'd always been secretive, but this was different. One night I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping, I just wanted to see if she was talking to anyone she shouldn't be. What I found was something that hit like a punch to the gut. It was her text messages, nothing explicit at first, just casual stuff about how she missed him and can't wait to see him again. The name was James. I didn't recognize it at first, but then I remembered. James is the owner of Bella Vista, the restaurant where I proposed, where we had our first kiss, where I thought we were happy. My heart started pounding. At first I thought maybe she was just talking about work or maybe a friend named James, but the way she had been acting, the late-night texts, the way her tone changed when she was texting, I knew it was something else. I kept reading. The messages got more intimate. They talked about meeting up, about getting away, about how much she liked the way he looked at her. That's when it all clicked. She was cheating on me, and she was doing it with James, the restaurant owner, the man I had trusted enough to propose to her in front of everyone. I couldn't breathe. My stomach turned. All those memories we made at Bella Vista, she was cheating on me the whole time. I wasn't just losing my wife. I felt like I lost the place I loved, the place I thought was ours. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept reading. There were more messages, more confirmations, and the worst part, she was so brazen about it. She was lying to my face every single day, acting like everything was fine, like I was overreacting or imagining things. That same night, I decided I couldn't just let this slide. I needed answers. I confronted her the next morning. I told her I knew about James, about the texts, everything. Her reaction, you won't believe it. She looked at me with that fake, bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was in control. "Oh, so you went through my phone now? Nice," she snapped. "You're so paranoid, Chris. Maybe I just talk to friends, you know. You're overreacting as usual." But I pressed her harder and her excuses started flying. "He's just a friend. It's not what it looks like. I was stressed. I didn't mean for it to happen." That's her usual bullshit. Nothing ever is her fault. It's everyone else's, me, the world, whatever. I was numb for a second. Then anger took over. How could she do this? After everything, I was the one who planned our future, who made sure we had that perfect life. And she was out there, lying, cheating, sneaking around with a guy she met at my favorite restaurant where I proposed. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a slap in the face. I'd always been the good guy, the patient one, the one who tried to fix things. But this was different. I felt humiliated, furious, crushed all at once. I knew I needed to cool off before I did something I'd regret, but I also knew one thing. This was the beginning of something I didn't see coming. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at Lisa the same way. Her words, her lies, everything felt like a bad joke. Still, I needed to get to the bottom of it. I decided to dig deeper, find out how long this had been going on, what other lies she'd been spinning. I started going through her emails, her social media, her phone again, anything I could find. Honestly, I didn't expect to find proof so fast, but the universe had other plans. One afternoon, I was at work when I got a strange, anonymous email. It was short, to the point, and chilling. It said, "You should look at her recent calls and messages. She's not who you think she is, Chris." No signature, no nothing, just that. My heart started pounding again. Who could it be? Someone who knew the truth, someone who wanted me to see it for myself. I decided I wouldn't ignore it. I waited until Lisa was out shopping or at some girls' night she claimed she needed. Then I snuck into her phone. It was a mess of texts and calls, texts from James, a handful of calls in the middle of the night, and a bunch of messages from other guys too. One message caught my eye. It was from Lisa, and it was telling James they needed to be careful. She was panicked. Trying not to get caught, I saw enough. My stomach twisted in knots. It wasn't just a fling. It was something serious, something she'd been hiding for months. That's when I started putting the pieces together. The way she acted, the late nights, the secret texts, everything pointed to a full-blown affair. I felt so betrayed I could barely breathe. It was like I'd been punched in the chest. How could she do this? To me, to us. I'd been nothing but good to her, supportive, patient. And she was out there, cheating, lying, pretending everything was fine. All the while, she was probably laughing to herself about how she was pulling the wool over my eyes. I decided I couldn't let her keep doing this. I needed to confront her again, but this time with proof. I prepared myself, knowing she'd lie her way out of it as she always did. I couldn't believe I was about to do this, but I knew I had to see her reactions, her real face, when the truth was laid out in front of her. That night I called her and told her I wanted to talk. When she arrived, that bitchy smirk was still on her face. I sat her down and showed her the messages from my phone, the call logs, everything I'd found. She looked stunned for a second, then her mask slipped. She started to lie again, saying I was paranoid, that I was reading too much into things, but I had enough. I told her I knew she'd been cheating, that I'd seen the proof with my own eyes. Her eyes narrowed and she snapped. "You don't understand, Chris. It's not what you think. It's just sex, a mistake, a stupid mistake I made because I felt neglected." That was her go-to excuse, just sex, like it was nothing. But I knew better. I knew it wasn't just about sex. It was about her betrayal, her lying, her disrespect. I looked at her, feeling a mix of rage, heartbreak, and utter disappointment. How could she call what she did a mistake? She said she was stressed, lonely, that James made her feel alive again, that she was just having fun. That's when I realized how much she devalued everything we built. Our relationship, our memories, my feelings, all of it was a joke to her. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like I was about to explode. I told her she needed to leave, pack her bags, and get out. I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. I was done. Done with her lies, her manipulation, her fake tears. I told her she could go be with her James and that I never wanted to see her face again. That night she stormed out, screaming that I was overreacting, that I was a jealous idiot. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. I had to decide what I was going to do next, whether I'd try to forgive her or finally put an end to this nightmare. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Every place I went, every moment I had alone, my mind kept replaying all those messages, all her lies. The worst part was the sense of betrayal, by her, by James, by the whole damn world. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I could have been so blind to what was happening right under my nose. Honestly, I felt humiliated. I had shared so much with Lisa, my hopes, my dreams, my future, and she threw it all away for some stupid fling with James. I spent hours researching on how to get proof, how to catch her in the act, stuff I'd never imagined I'd do. I was furious, but I also felt helpless. How do you fight someone who's so good at lying? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had to end it for good. I couldn't just walk away without some kind of plan. I wanted to make sure she understood the full extent of what she'd done, and I wouldn't settle for anything less than absolute proof. I decided to set up a trap. I started following her, watching her every move. I needed to see if she'd slip up, if she was still sneaking around with James or anyone else. It wasn't easy. It felt like I was stalking her, but I told myself it was for closure. I hired a private investigator just to cover my bases, and within a few days I had a report. It confirmed what I feared. She was still meeting James, even after I'd shown her I knew. They'd been seeing each other at a nearby hotel in secret. I couldn't believe it. That was the moment I knew I had to act fast. No more waiting, no more second guessing. I gathered all the evidence I could, photos, recorded conversations, even some incriminating texts she hadn't deleted. I wanted her to see that I had everything. I also reached out to a lawyer just to understand my options because I knew I couldn't keep going like this. I was done pretending, done feeling like the fool. Then I remembered something that truly pushed me over the edge. During one of my surveillance attempts, I overheard her on the phone, talking about how she was going to leave me for James once I was out of the picture. That cut deep. I realized she had no intention of stopping, no remorse, no shame. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I mean, how do you come back from that? How do you trust someone who's so reckless and selfish? The pain was unlike anything I'd ever known. It made me question everything about the life I thought I was building with her. So I decided I'd have to confront her. Again, but this time with everything laid out on the table. I set a meeting with her at a neutral place, some quiet cafe not far from her apartment. I told her I had more proof, that I'd collected everything and that I was done playing her games. When she finally arrived, she was furious, trying to act innocent, trying to pretend this was all a mistake or some misunderstanding. But I didn't buy it anymore. I showed her the photos of her and James, the recordings of her talking about leaving me, and the messages where she called me paranoid and controlling. Her reaction, that classic bitchy smirk again. She told me I was a crazy jealous man, that I'd overreacted, that I was insecure. She said she didn't owe me an explanation, that I was just making a scene. I felt the rage bubbling up inside me. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she dismiss everything she'd done like it was nothing? I told her she was disgusting, that I wanted nothing to do with her anymore, and that I was done wasting my time on someone so selfish. I told her she could go be with James and enjoy her freedom because I was finished with her bullshit. When she stormed out, shouting that I was overreacting, I finally felt the smallest bit of relief. It wasn't much, but I knew I'd done everything I could. I realized I had to focus on myself now. I'd lost her, yes, but I also gained clarity. The betrayal was so deep, I didn't even know if I could forgive her or ever look at her the same way again. But one thing was certain. I would never let someone treat me like a doormat. I've always been the kind of guy who believed in honesty and loyalty, and losing that trust shattered me more than I ever thought possible. Now, I had to figure out how to pick up the pieces. After everything that happened, I felt like I was walking around in a daze. The house, once full of memories and love, now just echoed with emptiness. Lisa was gone, and I'd already made up my mind that I wasn't going to chase after her. Honestly, I was too exhausted, emotionally drained from the roller coaster of betrayal, anger, and heartbreak. But even in the midst of all that chaos, I knew I had to do something for myself, to stop feeling like I was just a victim of her lies. I started talking to some friends, trying to process what I'd been through. They told me I should consider legal options, split everything properly, and most importantly, take time to heal. But I also knew that what I really needed was a way to reclaim my dignity. I couldn't let her get away with it, not without consequences. So I set out to plan my next move carefully. One of the things I did was revisit the restaurant Bella Vista, the place where I proposed, the place that held so many memories of us. I'd always loved that place, but now it felt like a betrayal every time I thought about the nights I spent there, thinking I'd found my forever. I remembered the night I proposed, how she cried, how happy I was. That night was supposed to be the start of our life together. Instead, it had become a symbol of her deceit. I decided I needed closure, so I went back alone, sat at the table where I proposed, and just stared at the space where everything had happened. As I sat there, I realized how much I'd been blindsided. I put so much trust in her, in us, and she had thrown it all away for some cheap affair. I started thinking about all the things I could have done differently, all the signs I missed. But mostly, I remembered that I deserved better, someone who genuinely loved me, someone loyal and honest. I knew I couldn't erase the pain overnight, but I could use it as a foundation to rebuild myself. Over the next few weeks, I began taking care of myself more, working out, focusing on my job, reconnecting with friends I'd been neglecting. It was a slow process, but I felt like I was finally starting to regain control. The best part, I started thinking about what I really wanted in life outside of her. I didn't need to be with someone who disrespected me like that. I realized I'd wasted so much time trying to fix what was obviously broken, and now it was time to move on. One night I looked at all the evidence I'd collected, pictures, messages, recordings, and I decided to go to a lawyer. I wanted to get the divorce process started, not out of spite, but because I knew I deserved to be free. I told myself I'd rather be alone than stuck in a toxic relationship with someone who didn't value me. The lawyer explained my options, and I began the process of dividing everything, making sure I'd get what I deserved. It was a painful step, but also a necessary one. In the end, I realized that revenge wasn't about getting back at her. That wouldn't bring peace. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my happiness. I learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do after being betrayed is to walk away, stronger than you were before. I don't regret confronting her or gathering all that proof. It hurt like hell, but it made me see the truth clearly. I learned that trust was something you earn, not something you give blindly. And I learned that no matter how much it hurts, life goes on. Maybe not immediately, but eventually you find your way back to happiness, even if it's without the person you once loved. The months that followed were a blur of legal meetings, moving out, and trying to rebuild some semblance of normalcy. Honestly, I felt like I was slowly waking up from a nightmare I didn't realize I was in. The anger had started to fade, replaced by a stubborn resolve. I knew she wasn't coming back, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted her to. Every time I thought about her with James, it still stung, but I pushed those feelings down. I had to focus on myself, not her. One thing I couldn't shake, though, was the feeling of betrayal that lingered deep inside. I kept wondering what went wrong, how I missed all the signs, how she could lie so effortlessly every single time I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. It was humbling, but also a wake-up call. I realized I'd been putting her first for so long that I neglected myself. That needed to change. I started going out more, reconnecting with friends, and even picking up new hobbies. I'd never been the type to sit around feeling sorry for myself, but I couldn't deny that her betrayal had changed me. I was more guarded now, more cautious about who I trusted. But I also felt lighter, like I was shedding a weight I'd carried for too long. Slowly, I was reclaiming my life piece by piece. One day, I finally sat down and fully processed what I'd been through. I realized I'd lost a lot: the woman I loved, the dreams we shared, the trust that once held us together. But I also gained clarity. I saw how much I deserved: honesty, loyalty, and respect. I deserved someone who wouldn't lie or cheat or lie about cheating. That realization felt like a small victory in itself. I also started thinking about the future, imagining what I really wanted. Not just escaping the pain, but building something meaningful. I knew I was still healing, still angry at times, but I was also hopeful. Maybe single life was better than being in a toxic relationship. Maybe I'd find someone who actually valued me, who appreciated me for who I was. I was tired of being played for a fool, but I was ready to move on. During this time, I kept the evidence I'd collected: photos, messages, recordings, just in case I needed them for legal reasons or closure. I didn't want to forget what she did, but I also didn't want to let it define me. It was a chapter I'd rather forget, but one I'd learned from. I knew I'd come out stronger, wiser, more cautious, and ultimately better off without her. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown from this experience. It's made me realize that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to truly understand your worth. And I've learned that revenge isn't about hurting her. It's about reclaiming your peace, your dignity, and your future. I've accepted that I may never completely forgive her, and honestly, I don't need to. Forgiveness is for myself, not for her. What matters now is that I forge ahead, unburdened and finally free from the lies that once held me back. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how much this messed with my head, but also how much I've learned about myself. The pain was fierce, and honestly, I still feel it sometimes. Those moments when the betrayal hits anew, like a punch in the gut. But I also feel stronger, more resilient than I ever thought I could be. That's the truth I've come to accept. Betrayal changes you, but it doesn't have to break you. It can, in fact, teach you your worth, remind you that you don't deserve to be lied to or used. Looking back, I see how I was too trusting, too hopeful that things would get better. I see now how important it is to pay attention to the little signs, to listen to that gut feeling, to not brush off your instincts. Because if I hadn't gone through her phone or set up that surveillance, I might never have known the full extent of her lies. And honestly, I might still be blind, living a lie. I learned that sometimes the only way to truly see the truth is to face it head-on, even if it's painful. I've also realized that revenge isn't about hurting her anymore. It's about stopping her from hurting me further. The real victory was in walking away, knowing I had done everything I could, gathered proof, confronted her, set boundaries, and still chose to leave her behind. I'm finally free from the toxic cycle, and that feels better than any revenge could ever give me. Most importantly, I've learned I don't need someone who doesn't value me. I don't need the chaos, the lies, the cheating. Instead, I need to focus on myself, rebuild my life, and find happiness on my terms. That's what I'm doing now. I'm healing slowly but surely. I'm reconnecting with friends, focusing on my career, and rediscovering what makes me happy. I know I'll be okay, better than okay, actually. So, for anyone out there going through something similar, here's what I want to say. Trust yourself. Pay attention to the signs. Don't ignore your feelings or dismiss red flags. And most of all, don't settle for less than you deserve. Betrayal hurts like hell, but it also teaches you how strong you truly are. You can get through it, and one day, you'll look back and realize how much brighter your life is without the lies and the betrayal weighing you down. I may never fully forget what happened, but I'll move forward. Stronger, wiser, and finally at peace. That's the biggest lesson I'll take from this whole nightmare. Trust me, if I can come out the other side, so can you.